Strathclyde Police definition in relation to domestic abuse is any form of physical, sexual or mental and emotional abuse which might amount to criminal conduct and which takes place within the context of a relationship. The relationship will be between partners, married, cohabiting, civil partnerships or otherwise, or ex-partners. The abuse may be committed in the home or elsewhere, while available evidence suggests that most prevalent instances of domestic abuse or male abuse towards women, the definition acknowledges and includes female abuse towards men and abuse between partners or ex-partners in close same-sex relationships. All officers and members of police staff remain alert to the needs of our diverse community and sensitive in establishing the sexual orientation relationships of the persons involved, which basically is the lungs of, what might be construed to be domestic incident is not necessarily domestic abuse, but it has to have a criminal aspect to it for police to investigate. Strathclyde Police uniform officers usually would attend an incident of domestic abuse, at which time statements are taken. Every incident that is reported to the police then is put on the system, and details of which are sent to various departments, one of which being the Domestic Abuse Unit, which is the department I work in. We trawl through incidents every day, contact victims, and then we signpost them to relevant agencies where we think they can get the necessary report, or where they need help, they can go to these agencies and get valuable information from them. Our role primarily is, like I said before, was the criminal aspect of things. Once police have dealt with the criminal aspect of things, it is then up to other partner agencies to then see to the other needs of a victim.
Children are affected by witnessing domestic abuse in many ways. Some children are fearful. Some children, depending on age and stage, feel as if they're to blame for the adults in their life experiencing difficulties. Some children are significantly traumatised emotionally and physically in terms of the domestic abuse, but certainly now we know that from past experience, children at the very least have their experiences of domestic abuse impact on their lives significantly. I think children who witness domestic abuse normalise this behaviour and think that's how adults should behave. So they can grow up thinking that this is how you behave as an adult and either become victims or perpetrators of domestic abuse. However, that's a generalisation. Some children grow up knowing that this is wrong and want to move away from these circumstances. So there's no actual definitive theory regarding that. So some children will be affected and some children can move away from that lifestyle.
And we'll roll in.
Domestic abuse has been high profile over the last few years, specifically since studies show that children are adversely affected by domestic abuse. There's local authorities and agencies have a higher priority in terms of their managing domestic abuse, and certainly the police take all domestic abuse situations very seriously. I think in terms of the justice services, I think the difficulty is that a lot of perpetrators of domestic abuse don't experience consequences, or the consequences they do experience don't significantly impact on their behaviour. So I think from my point of view, I think that the government could look at the justice system in terms of sentencing people who are convicted of domestic abuse more significantly. Sorry, that.
The police's role in aftercare of victims is primarily signposting to partner agencies to ensure that they get the support that is required to ensure, hopefully, that there's not repeat offending. We work with perpetrators in carrying out repeat offender management visits to kind of highlight any issues they might have. We signpost victims to Women's Aid, to social services, to health visitors, basically to try and educate them in what is tolerable behaviour and to highlight safety measures to victims, and hopefully they take this on board. The government have already recognised that there is a problem with incidents of domestic abuse, and there's a lot of media campaigns ongoing just now to kind of educate people in what is domestic abuse, and I think part of that is letting people understand what domestic abuse is. I think a lot of people would see incidents, and unless it's actual physical violence, they don't actually think that they are victims of domestic abuse. And part of the media campaign just now is to show you the different effects and what is domestic incidents. Also, laws are changing. The government has brought in laws under the Criminal Justice Licensing in Scotland Act in order to highlight discrepancies in the law so that perpetrators can be dealt with appropriately.
The current trends in domestic abuse indicate that victims are more able to contact and more readily able to contact the police to allege an incident. However, they're less likely to follow that up in terms of following on for a conviction and making a complaint. Also, we're now finding that there are more male victims of domestic abuse, where females are obviously the perpetrators, so that's also interesting. Certainly we're finding that there are a lot of cultural issues, particularly when for some Polish families or Asian minority families, and obviously there are other families of culture and origin, that there are cultural issues that we also have to deal with.